afternoon, everyone. We are extremely excited. We are so happy to have you today at the launch of this wonderful book. We are starting a little bit late, but excuse us because we wanted to have as many people be around as we start, so that we don't have to repeat whatever is going to be said, especially by the authors. But now that we are given, we are still having only 1.5 hours. We're going to be kind of running a little bit faster to make sure we give people ample space to run back home when that time comes. But we have a lot of fun also happening after the book launch. So don't go. I just needed to let you know as early as possible, because much more is going to happen past 11, past 5. As we start, it's our tradition in Uganda. We start with a prayer. And this book has something to do with high powers, higher powers. Higher powers is about God or something up there. So we really want somebody to lead us in the opening prayer, and then I'll take you through the next program. Thank you. Who is leading us in the prayer? You want to do it?
I can do it.
Oh, come. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's stand up and vote. Oh God, we thank you for today. Thank you for this nice afternoon. We thank you for the great weather, and we thank you especially for the life. We thank you for this cause that is here, Father, and we know it is all for the good. We ask you, Father, that you lead everything that transpires today, and at the end may we achieve the set goal. In Jesus' name I pray.
Extremely grateful and delighted to partner with University of Virginia at the launch of this book. One of the things that fascinated me when I first got to learn about this beautiful work is the fact that they were thinking about another model of getting people out of the alcohol and substance abuse challenge. As you know, our country is grappling with that challenge. So many of our people have been ruined in the villages, in urban centers. Very many intellectuals, I can say even on our campus, have had to lose their successful careers because of alcohol. So it's a big challenge that we do have. And all of us are very passionate and we really want to do something. We want to support as many people as we can. I know some of us who are seated in here are professionals, the way you see those up here. I'm very delighted to see distinguished men and women who have done a lot of research, but also practiced to support many people out of this challenge. But before I get to them, I want first of all to acknowledge and recognize the work done by the authors, because we are here because of these 3 people. Starting with Dr. Charles. Dr. Charles is a dean in University of Virginia. She works, she'll tell you more about what she does, but she's a medical anthropologist. We have George Mpanga and Sarah Namirembe, who have been the research team that has brought about some good work that is going to be useful not only to us in Uganda, but also to the entire world, in terms of understanding how else we support people who are struggling with alcohol challenges. So we really want to listen to them. We want to borrow something and take it wherever we are going and spread the gospel, tell people how else we can try to address this challenge. So thank you very much for thinking and for going through the trouble to look for resources. I know research can be very expensive, but also it's time consuming. As you will get to know, these people did the study for 4 solid years. That's a long time. And we must put our hands and clap 4 years. It's a long time. I also wish to acknowledge two of the discussants. Professor Nazarius Mbona has done a lot of research in the field of alcohol. And many of you who are interested in that field, you should have come across his works. He has done quite a lot. He's a professor in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics at the School of Public Health. And the other person that you might have come to know at an earlier stage is Dr. Basangwa David. He was director emeritus at Botanica National Mental Health Referral Hospital. They want to change the name, I'm told, to make it sweeter so that people don't fear to go to Botanica. So he'll tell you more about it, and he must have come across quite a lot of stuff to do with alcohol and stuff. And he actually was those two were first met when this study was going, and they supported this research team quite a lot. So thank you very much. Much as you have a very scientific background, for having allowed people to bring in more the social science perspective to the treatment of alcohol addiction. So, and now we are going to marry the two, and I think things are going to get better. Thank you very much for having worked well with the team. So we are extremely delighted to have you here today. And because I'm not good, I must stop now. I must say thank you very much to the people who have come from Gulu, the people who have been very supportive of this project, who have come from Makerere University of Science and Technology, people who have come from Busitema, who have come from the villages. All of you have been part of this, and the faculty here and the staff here. I see my colleagues are also seated here, and some other well-wishers, people who are in practice, students. Thank you all for making it to this launch. I know we are all going to benefit from this wonderful launch, and please let's interact. Let this be the start of another episode of looking for other outlooks of how we can support our friends. With all of us have people who could be struggling with alcohol challenges, and I know after this meeting we are going to be wonderful evangelists of what has come out of this wonderful work. Book, and our eyes are wide open. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Henry Zubuga, for that wonderful introduction, for welcoming us to this distinguished university, and for the incredible efforts that you put into making today possible. When we first started talking about this event, I thought maybe we'd have a seminar with about 10 people and maybe a cup of coffee, and this has really become something so extraordinary. We also want to thank Professor Nazarius Mbona and Dr. David Basangwa for joining us as discussants this afternoon. A special thanks to our colleagues who have joined us from Ulu University and the Makerere University of Science and Technology. Our special guests, the deans, principals, and heads of departments from all different departments and colleges of this great university. And also for those of you who are here today who have walked with us in various ways for the last 4 years. We are so happy to be here today to celebrate this launch, and are so grateful to have an opportunity to share just a small taste of this work with such a distinguished audience. The World Health Organization estimates that approximately 76 to 85% of people with mental health disorders in low and middle income countries have not received any treatment. As researchers, policymakers, and practitioners look to better understand this problem, a problem that's been termed the mental health treatment gap, hotly contested questions remain about the role that traditional medicine and other non-biomedical therapies should play in the remediation of mental health disorders. Might the treatment gap look different if we thought more broadly about what constitutes care? This afternoon, we take up this question as it relates to the diagnosis and treatment of alcohol use disorders in Uganda, taking a deep dive into our recently published book, Higher Powers, Alcohol and After in Uganda's capital city, to discuss therapeutic quests in Uganda that fall outside of biomedical frameworks. Given the relatively recent introduction of biomedical models of substance use disorders in Uganda, most people engaged in substance use disorder treatment in Uganda use other therapeutic resources, including herbal aversion therapies, engagement with spirit mediumship, and forms of deliverance and spiritual warfare practiced in Pentecostal churches. Through long-term collaborative ethnographic research, participants in these spaces have taught us about the alternative therapeutic forms, teaching us that each contain understandings of the self and practices of sociality that point towards new possibilities for recovery and social reintegration. Their insights raise important questions concerning the diagnosis and treatment of substance use disorders and place non-biomedical forms of healing in national and international mental health policy that may prove relevant in Uganda and well beyond. Preventing and treating substance use disorders, including the harmful use of alcohol, has recently risen as a global priority and is now target 3.5 of the Sustainable Development Goals adopted in 2015. This aim is especially important in Uganda, given the high levels of alcohol consumption. According to the recently released WHO 2023 World Health Statistics Report, Uganda is back to being listed as having one of the highest per capita consumption rates in the world at 12.2 liters of pure alcohol per year per person over the age of 15. While medicalized categories like alcohol use disorder, addiction, and alcohol dependence are only beginning to gain traction in Uganda, surveys deploying standardized diagnostic scales indicate an alcohol use disorder prevalence of 7.1% and alcohol dependence of 2.5%. This is approximately 3.2 million people and 1.2 million people respectively. So if you can imagine, almost the entire population of the city of Kampala over the course of the whole country. At present, the nationwide infrastructure for inpatient alcohol and drug treatment is limited to approximately 300 beds. So imagine that, 3.2 million to 300. Most of these are in Kampala, and approximately 2/3 are located in private facilities, making them inaccessible to all but the wealthiest Ugandans. There are also several Alcoholics Anonymous fellowships in the capital and in other major cities. This situation is reflected in population-level surveys that estimate that only 3.5% of Ugandans with alcohol use disorders have accessed any formal treatment. This leaves a treatment gap of 96.5%. While expanding access to treatment in clinical settings remains an important issue, something else begins to happen when we shift our gaze away from the clinics and towards other, less immediately visible forms of care for people struggling with problems related to alcohol. This shift in focus has important implications for addressing alcohol use disorders and for thinking about global mental health policy more broadly. And here I want to just pause to thank Dr. David Basankwa for encouraging us to take this wider gaze back when we first met with him in 2015. When we expand our definitions of treatment, we find that other forms of care can be readily found in the shops of urban herbalists who prepare aversion therapies that make use of local plant-based emetics, otherwise known as medicines that make you vomit. There are other traditional healers known as basamize, who practice a form of spirit mediumship to help people struggling with a wide range of issues, including alcohol-related problems, by helping them to establish more beneficial relationships with spirits. By contrast, Pentecostal pastors and sprawling church complexes pray for those struggling to be delivered from these same spirits so that they may live their lives in freedom. These alternative treatment modalities are at the center of the recently released book, as you've heard many times now today, Higher Powers, Alcohol and After in Uganda's capital city, that we are here to formally launch today. To explore these alternative treatment modalities, we engaged in 4 years of collaborative ethnographic fieldwork. And while the role of relationships in recovery is central to the content of this work, at a more methodological level, this book is also the outcome of a set of relationships. And we'd like to pause here to talk a little bit about our methods and the collaborative nature of the project.
My collaboration with China Shares began in 2007 when China was just starting her dissertation research on orphan support programs in Uganda. After we completed that project, I did my BA at Kampala International University and worked as an assistant for several other historians and anthropologists, some of whom I'm expecting here. When China asked me to join her in working on this new project about alcohol in 2015, she suggested that instead of working as an assistant on the project, I might work as a full collaborator and we would try to co-author most of the writings. A startup grant for the University of Virginia allowed China to hire me to work on the project on a full-time basis. In February 2018, China received a grant from the National Science Foundation. This grant not only allowed us to continue with the work, but it also allowed us to hire Sarah. Sarah and I had grown up in the same village and had known each other since she was a young girl. It was thus our mutual delight when we met by chance while she was serving as a volunteer educator at Alcohol and Drug Unit at the National Psychiatric Hospital. By that time, she had already finished her BA in community psychology here at Makerere University. And she's now completing an MA in medical anthropology at Gulu University. Over the years, Sarah and I have conducted field work on full-time basis. During this time, China joined the team conducting field work in Uganda for a total of 24 weeks, spread over the course of 4 years, and participated remotely through extensive twice weekly meetings via Skype, where we reviewed transcripts and notes. Over the course of these 4 years, we spent time and spoke with nearly 300 people in bars, rehabilitation centers, Alcoholic Anonymous fellowships, churches, herbalist clinics, and shrines. The vast majority of this work took place in Uganda's capital city, Kampala. Given the number and variety of available options, including the country's 2 major inpatient rehabilitation programs, Kampala provided us with an excellent location for exploring a range of treatment modalities currently available in Uganda.
This collaborative, multi-sited approach transformed the project in several ways. At a very basic level, the collaborative nature of the project has allowed us to collect data at a much wider range of sites and a much longer uninterrupted period of time than would have been otherwise possible. At a deeper level, and perhaps more importantly, working collaboratively has allowed us to think about the things that we have learned during our fieldwork from different perspectives. Our research participants relate to each of us in different ways, and this changes what people tell us and how we think about it. When we exchange field notes written about the observation we have made while standing side by side, we often find that we have noticed different things and come to different conclusions about them.
Writing together also changes how we write in other ways. Co-producing text has allowed us to consider and address questions of accessibility and voice that ultimately change our readership, putting questions about who and what anthropological writing is for at the center of our work. Our commitment to expanding our readership beyond the U.S. Academy has led us to push for this open access contract with the University of California Press's Open Access Luminos series that allows anyone, anywhere, to download a free PDF copy of this book at any time, so please feel free to share the links. Finally, as will be made clear throughout this talk, it is next to impossible to do anything in Uganda without relying on a dense network of relational ties. In our commitment to collaboration, we are bringing insights from Uganda and elsewhere in Africa about the ethics of interdependence into a rapidly expanding conversation about the need for more collaborative forms of anthropological practice, and in the process, hoping to transform a long history of important but often invisible contributions made by assistants and translators in Africanist anthropology. This process of writing together across a wide range of sites has ultimately transformed the project into something that none of us could have created independently of one another.
With regard to the question of interdependence, we also need to say a word, the role that alcohol plays in contemporary Kampala, where bars serve as primary public site for social connections, particularly for men. For men, bars are spaces of pressure, friendship, and possibility. They are places for mobilizing social projects and talking politics. They are also crucial sites for connecting to job opportunities, a point that we found to be equally true for brickmakers and business lawyers. Friendships forged in these bars are often trivialized in inpatient treatment centers, as people are encouraged to avoid their former partners in crime. It is an implicit assumption that little of worth will be lost in this transition and that there will surely be other places where one could go to rebuild a different set of social connections.
Unfortunately, it's not so easy to simply pick up and start all over again. In Uganda, finding a home, a job, or even someone trustworthy enough to repair one's car fundamentally depends on being positioned within a dense network of trusting relationships. While relationships forged in bars, like all relationships, are not universally positive, they are indeed relationships and cannot be severed without cost. These relations and the forms of mobility that they enable can be put at risk when someone decides to stop drinking. With this in mind, in the remainder of our talk today, we'll describe the 3 alternative therapeutic pathways we discuss in Higher Powers to discuss how and in what ways do herbal aversion therapies, Pentecostalism, and spirit mediumship address the situation. Do they allow for the continuity of old friendships on new terms, or do they demand the complete cessation of these relationships? Do they create opportunities for the creation of new social ties? And if so, through what means? If we know that well-being in Uganda, and perhaps everywhere, depends on connection, and that for men, the bar is the primary public space where connection occurs, what happens when the life sustained in the bar becomes one's undoing? What happens when one must turn away from this singular space of sociality, movement, and trust?
Now allow us to share a story of one particular participant called Mayanja. Mayanja grew up in a family of distillers in a village in the central region of Uganda. He started drinking at the age of 15, and by P6, he was drinking so heavily that he dropped out of school. He also fought when he drank, and after one particular bad fight, he ran to Kampala to escape the police. Though he had a brother in Kampala who was willing to house him while he worked roasting chicken in front of a Kampala bar, his drinking and his problems only got worse. And after a year, his brother eventually threw him out of the house. A friend connected him with the job of driving a border, but he drank all the money he made and slept lying on the seat of the bike. He eventually got a loan of 1.2 million for a larger bike, but unintentionally spent the whole of the loan in the bar buying beer for himself and his friends the night before he was to buy the bike. In despair and frantic to make back his money, he picked up 2 people who were looking for a ride. At the traffic light, he lost control of the bike. The woman didn't survive the accident. He ran to the village to avoid the microfinance officers and the police. But after 2 years, he came back, roasting chicken again and still drinking all his money. One of the barkeepers took pity on him and asked if he wanted to try to stop. He said he did, and she brought him medicine from a herbalist to take in Tonto or in whatever alcohol he liked best. When he took the medicine, he vomited for days, and when he tried to taste alcohol again, the feeling came back. Eventually, even smelling it made him nauseous. This was 10 years ago, and he has never drunk again. While there are many interesting things about this story, what is most interesting for our purposes today is what Mayanja's social life looks like. While Mayanja doesn't drink, most of his friends still do. He buys alcohol for his friends to drink in his house while he drinks juice, and they watch movies together. He also spends time with them in bars playing Ludo. He still drives his border, but is now the treasurer of this association. One customer in particular has also come over the past 5 years to trust him enough to hire him in his screen printing business and to help him to start business of rearing broiler chickens. In 2016, he also met a woman newly arrived in Kampala from the village. They have now married and have 2 children. While we might not want to make strong causal link between Mayanja's continued participation in the social life of the bar and his success in the other domains of his life, his story does imply that it's possible to continue to socialize in bars without relapsing, and that doing so can be an important element in one's sense of well-being and social connection. Mayanja's real fear of the physical consequences that may follow due to the effects of the medicine likely make this space safer for him than it would be otherwise. Further, it seems important to note that the transformation on Mayanja's drinking behavior was not accompanied by a shift in identity or in his understanding of himself as being a particular kind of person. He understands that he should never drink again, but doesn't see himself as an alcoholic. He's primarily focused not on his inner self, but is rather oriented outwards towards his current relationship and the things he's doing. He isn't focused on exploring his past, but on his future, his work, his wife, etc. This sense of an outward and future orientation seems to play an important role in his efforts to rebuild his life, and could perhaps be something to consider further.
Richard also grew up in a family of distillers in a village in central Uganda. He started drinking Tonto when he was only 7 and shifted to Arajan marijuana when he was 15, which he attributes to a sense of loneliness and isolation after his mother died when he was 10. Richard also started singing, and as he looks and sounds almost exactly like Bobby Wine, found it easy to move through the clubs and ghettos of Kampala. Richard first came to Pastor John's church in 2011. He had woken up to smoke, but followed the music to the church. He continued to drink and smoke, but was embraced by the pastors, despite his dreads and substance use, moving around between church and ghetto. He eventually stopped for 7 months by moving onto the church property, but relapsed when a friend in the church who was also still using took him back to the ghetto over the weekend. 5 years passed after his relapse, during which he wanted nothing to do with the church. During this time, he also spent 7 months in the compound of Musamize, but eventually stole the money from the basket and escaped. But on New Year's Eve 2016, just as he was just about to enter a club to perform with some friends, he heard God tell him to throw down his cigarettes and marijuana and get born again. He didn't perform that night, but instead went to the crusade that was happening nearby to get saved. A month later, he returned to Pastor John's church and has been living on the property and sober ever since. As with Mayanja, while there are many interesting aspects of Richard's story, it is that his present social life and the opportunities he has had to build up a new network of social support that concerns us today. As is true for others attempting to move beyond alcohol by taking up residence at Pastor John's church, Richard has been given a series of small jobs with increasing levels of responsibility and visibility. After having worked as an usher at the security desk checking bags for many months, he was assigned to work in the parking lot, noting down the number on the license plates. While this job checking license plates in the parking lot might not seem like a big deal, this opportunity has given Richard a chance to interact with all the car-owning people who come to Pastor John's church. As the wealthiest members of the fellowship, These people are in good position to help Richard to move forward with his life, and many have come to admire Richard's positive attitude and the new system he developed for registering the plates and organizing the cars. This small job has given Richard a way of proving his trustworthiness over a long period of time. It has also provided a means for him to increase his visibility too, and relationships with people who might be able to offer a pathway towards other opportunities. And such connections have been a vital part of his recovery process. For Richard then, Pastor Jones was both the physical place where jobs and opportunities manifested themselves, as well as the source of his belief that God is training him for something big, and that belief orients him towards his work and towards his future. Rather than feeling stuck in a difficult low-status job, far from the central action of the church office, Richard saw his work in the parking lot as a step on a divinely given pathway that is leading him to bigger and better things. While Richard is perhaps naturally a friendly, hardworking man, he's having the hope that blessings will come to him through his work at the church, change the way he interacted with people and approached his work, making such blessings even more likely to come his way. Richard's hopes were founded on experiences of divine guidance. These experiences assured him of his place in God's plan and of the divine warrant for the difficult actions he would later undertake. Further, as is clear in Richard's story, the role that hope plays extends well beyond the perceptions of a given individual. Richard's faith that God was preparing him for something big gave him the psychological resources he needed to face the many long scorching afternoons he spent in the parking lot, but also the hope that this hope enabled him to hope that his fellow church members had in him. So the church members had hope in him, and this created a possibility that he was fundamentally separable from the spiritual forces that had caused him to drink, and also played a critical role in changing his life, as these people also had reason to believe in the possibility of his transformation. Despite the links between some forms of Christianity and Alcoholics Anonymous, the form of hope that shaped Richard's recovery differed profoundly from the ideas found in the inpatient recovery centers and recovery communities in Kampala. Had Richard made his way to one of Kampala's newly founded AA groups, he likely would have been taught to see himself as having a fundamental and unchanging condition. He likely would have learned to identify as an addict, to have learned that he was a particular kind of person. By contrast, at Pastor Jones, Richard came to understand himself as having been delivered from demonic spirits and born again, freed from the influence of forces that were never him anyway. While his vision of bodies taken over by external forces bears some similarity to the metaphor of the hijacked brain found in some discussions of the chronic relapsing brain disease model, at Pastor John's church, Richard was told that there is something he could do to expel or negotiate with the hijacker.
Sumuju realized he wasn't living a normal life when he was also 15 years old. His schooling was a problem because he had poor vision and could not see what was written on the chalkboard. He also had begun to drink heavily, often taking a small bottle to be filled at the informal Waraji distillery near his home, lying to the distillers and saying he had been sent by his father. His uncle urged his father to attend to the Lubale spirits, which they believed lay behind Sumuju's drinking, to give them the care and attention that was their due. But at the urging of his stepmother, his father refused to address the problem in this way. Sumuju ultimately left home and went to live with a distant relative in Kampala. His relative was named Jaja Kusumba. While Sumuju was glad to find a home away from his stepmother, he was still drinking, fighting in bars, and getting fired from every job he could find. One day, while he was riding his bicycle, Sumuju got into an accident. During the long period of convalescence that followed, Sumuju started questioning himself about his life and where his problems were coming from. He went to Jaja Kusumba to consult him, and Jaja Kusumba began to counsel Sumuju about his drinking and its spiritual causes. With the help of the Lubale spirits who possess him during divinations, Jaja Kusumba explained that Sumuju had two opposing Lubale in him, Chiwanuka and Bamoyana. While he said that Chiwanuka is a very good and powerful spirit who does not drink, Chiwanuka had sent another spirit, Bamoyana, to make Sumuju drink in ways that would ruin his life to punish him for his neglect. The spirit said that Sumuju must satisfy both Bamoyana by making an offering of alcohol to him, and Chiwanuka by assembling a kit for him, including a kanzu, a piece of bark cloth, a gourd, a stick, and a bag with money. Through these dual efforts, Sumuju could effectively be relieved of Bamoyana's negative influences and come into a more beneficial relationship with Chiwanuka. After a long delay and many other signs, Sumuju eventually relented and followed the instructions that the spirits had given him. He bought the necessary things and began to look for further instructions in his dreams. Soon after assembling the kit, Sumuju also stopped drinking, and other things in his life began to change as well. Family members who he had lost touch with resurfaced in some truly miraculous ways. Distraught and late to work, Sumuju got dressed and went to where the trucks were offloading the daily shipment from Kampala. As soon as he arrived, one of the truck owners told him that he didn't need him anymore. He had gotten someone else. Then another called to give him the same news. Sumuju was suddenly and inexplicably jobless. He called Jaja Kusumba for help. When he heard the story, Jaja Kusumba immediately went and questioned the friend who had been keeping the kit, and then chased him from the compound. With no job, Sumuju decided to return to Uganda. Before boarding the bus home, he used all of his remaining money to buy top packs of waraji, stuffing every pocket of his baggy trousers with the plastic sachets. When he reached Kampala, he was drunk and nearly unconscious. In the week that followed, Sumuju drank with abandon. Luckily, someone recognized him one night passed out on the side of the road and carried him back to Jaja Kusumba's compound. Eventually, Sumuju was able to reassemble the kit, and once he did, he was able to stop drinking again. This was 2012, and since that time, he has not had any problems with alcohol. He makes sure to keep the gourds he has left for Bamoyana filled with beer and regularly lights fires for Chiwanuka. He has also started to take up the necessary training to become a leader in this community of Basanize. From time to time, he drinks a little beer or a little tonto, but only during rituals or other offerings, and it never causes him any difficulties now that he has once again settled his problems with Chiwanuka and Bamoyana. Like Richard, Sumuju's story speaks to the affordances of experiencing oneself as living in a world that is densely populated by spiritual beings that might be obscured in some visions of medicine or social science. While the experiences of people like Richard and Sumuju differ radically in terms of how they understood the moral valence of the spirits that possessed them, and whether these spirits were to be exercised through deliverance or embraced and accommodated, they both found themselves called to respond to forces that seemed to come from beyond themselves. As in Susan Reynolds White's writings on the ways that people confront misfortune in eastern Uganda, the questions they asked and the answers they sought focused less on the introspective question, why me, than they did on the extrospective question, who are you? With the inquiring gaze focused on beings outside the self. Further, as is also true in White's work, this question was not asked as a matter of abstract curiosity or even of regret. Instead, it was a question asked pragmatically, asked in an effort to determine a course of action, in an effort to respond, to do something about these forces that were impinging on their lives. For Sumuju, this process of extrospective questioning revealed that Chiwanuka had sent Bamoyana to punish him for his neglect. By properly attending to Chiwanuka and Bamoyana, Sumuju was freed from a form of drinking that had been inflicted upon him, while at the same time deepening his ties to Chiwanuka with the hope of prospering through his care. In learning to see his drinking this way, Sumuju found a sense of hope and came to understand that there were things he could do to change his situation. Bracketing the question of the ontological reality of the Lubale, bracketing the question of whether the Lubale are real, we can see that in materially responding to Chiwanuka's call, Sumuju's experience of the world was transformed. His sacrifices allowing him to approach the task of living a sober life with a different kind of energy and commitment. Likewise, in coming to understand his relapse and his loss of his job as resulting from the destruction of the kid, the restoration of the kid became the means through which he could reorient himself to the task of sobriety once again. While such an understanding of the possible effects of ritual might lead to deadly results in the case of appendicitis if prayer were not also accompanied by surgery, we want to argue that in the case of substance use disorders, such an understanding opens up radically new pathways for re-engaging with one's future. As we can see in both Samuju and Richard's stories, this process of repositioning oneself in relation to illness is not an easy one, and it can take months or even years to accomplish. But once embraced and symbolically engaged through ritual speech and action, these understandings of illness can have truly remarkable effects. As in Richard's story, considering the transformative potential of these spiritual experiences and ritual engagements also requires an understanding of the ways in which our lives are shaped by collective beliefs. For both Richard and Samuju, there was a collective faith that they had been truly transformed, and this opened up new possibility for it being incorporated into new communities of care. These new relationships were imperative given the importance of relationships in Uganda and the central role that bars play in their constitution and maintenance. Having a model of alcohol use disorders that gives community members reason to think that profound transformation may be possible allows people to form different kinds of relationships with people in recovery in the present and to live with a sense of confidence about what may be coming for them in the future. What we hope to have made clear in this talk is that Richard and Samuju's spiritual experiences and the ties of social connection that surround them gave them both a profound sense of hope that a new life was possible and a safe and concrete space where that new life could take shape.
While the case studies we presented this afternoon do not constitute a comparative efficacy study, they do reveal a glimpse into forms of treatment that may help. Building an eventually evidentially basis for such treatments will not be easy, as they are difficult to standardize, but this should not make them invisible. With this in mind, we want to suggest that these case studies should be changed the way that we see the treatment gap in 3 ways.
First, if we are to include people who have sought care at churches, shrines, and herbal medicine, that might be smaller. There remains considerable work to be done to decide whether this would be an appropriate inclusion. And our observations suggest that there is reason to explore this line of inquiry.
Second, these forms of treatment could perhaps be explored as possible ways of attending to those not currently engaged in care for alcohol use disorders. National mental health policies across the sub-Saharan Africa espouse a commitment to primary care and community participation. Yet, in most cases, they do not reflect the aims of decolonization that shaped the definition of primary health care at Alma Ata. Instead, in their commitment to evidence-based medicine and human rights, non-biomedical practitioners end up defined primarily as those who need to be educated and sensitized so that they can appropriately refer their clients to the hospital. While biomedical referral may indeed be appropriate for many illnesses, healers working in other therapeutic paradigms may also have something to offer, and this may be especially true in the case of mental health. Further, as countries aim to strengthen the regulation of traditional and complementary medicine, as has recently taken shape in Uganda under the 2019 Traditional and Complementary Medicines Act, we need to attend to the ways in which the social technologies deployed by healers may be just as important as the more pharmacologically active therapies that herbalists deploy.
Finally, we hope that this research will help us to guard against the possibility that policies designed to promote evidence-based care do not inadvertently widen the treatment gap by outlawing approaches for which an evidence base is simply more difficult to attain. While ethnographic data like that we presented today is only a first step in that direction, it is perhaps enough to open a space for further research, dialogue, and collaboration. Thank you all for your attention. It's been wonderful being with you. I'll turn the floor back to Mr. Henry Nsubuga.
Thank you very much for taking us through your study and the book. I think all of us now have a picture of what is in there. I didn't know about Wamoyana. There are people called Wamoyana. I didn't know it was even a god, and that they are here, and that God helps us to heal. I think now I'm going to look for Wamoyana in some way and see how. Yeah, they are effective now who have been. Yeah, it might be something that we have been losing out. So now, anyway, that's for a joke. I'm probably not going there today, but I'm going to try to find out more. But that tells us really that we need to think deeper. And at this juncture, because of time, I wish to invite our two discussants. We shall start with Dr. Basangwa. Discuss this work coming from the biomedical model and now looking at this. I think it's going to spice up our work, knowing how the two can actually work together to support our people. Just like I said, each one of us has people who could be struggling in some way with alcohol. Yeah, thank you very much.
Our director, Mr. Nsubuga, the authors, distinguished lecturers and the staff from the various universities, noted the Makerere, Guru, Mbarara, and others, students, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a great pleasure and honor for me to be here and to be part of this very important function as we launch a very impactful book entitled Higher Powers, but by my good friends, the authors, Professor China, Sarah, and George. Thank you so much for the work. I want to appreciate the organizers for inviting me and for giving me a slot to say a few words. This book launch is very exciting for me because first, it touches a subject that is very, very close to my heart. But two is that it is also about a subject where I've been involved for quite a long time as a health worker. I have for long in that field been looking forward to getting information or research or studies coming out to us, locally generated by local people and done in our environment. Sadly, these have not been many. We've been getting really very, very few studies coming out of this. So I'm glad today that today we have something that has come up from our local environment by our people, and this to me puts a smile on my face. So first and foremost, allow me to congratulate Professor China and the team for this very, very important milestone. Congratulations to you. I note that the project idea was conceived about 7 years ago, and now it has been successfully completed with tangible results that we are all here to witness and share. This therefore means that the project was well planned, properly executed, and has given us a useful product that we know we are going to use to educate many people, but it's also going to transform our society, both here, locally and internationally. We really appreciate that. The title given to this book is Higher Power, Higher Powers. Whatever the problem first, we should never give up, for there is always power which is above human beings. And that's the higher power. And I think that's the book, what the book really talks about. The book adds context to the fact that there are multiple additional resources that can be used to support people struggling with addictions. And among the resources that are talked about are those that are fortunately, they are local available, they are accessible, they are affordable. And they have illustrated all these in the submission. And that's something that has also been written about in that book. Now, I noted the book starts with a fundamental question, which I also believe is the reason for starting the very project. And that question was, why is it that even with a lot of evidence from WHO and a lot written, not much appears to be coming out to address this problem? The WHO issue came up on the high per capita consumption of alcohol in this country, and I think the first one in 2004 was putting at about 19.8 liters per capita, which was quite high. Although, of course, later it was probably thought there were some issues with the tool that may have exaggerated the results. The tool was corrected, and at some stage we came to about 9.4. But then I think the last one, like China was sharing, were put at 12 point something. But sadly, even when it has reduced, you all know that I think we have the highest level of consumption in the region. Like you've had heavy estimates, a lot of people taking it. About 1 in 4 adults ever use among school-going youth, but also very disturbing with multiple social evils that include poverty, domestic violence, road traffic accidents, and so on and so forth. Fortunately, as we talk today, government has taken some action. I'm not speaking for government, but I've already heard about some of these actions taking place. Probably these actions started after a few people had raised concerns, including electronic and print media, why nothing was being done in spite of the evidence that we were in trouble. Such actions have included, I think there's now a national alcohol policy, the alcohol control bill is on, and more treatment facilities have come on. All these are positive steps in the right direction, but our biggest prayer, like in our country, is that what has come up is implemented, sustained, and continuously evaluated to give better and viable strategic direction. The other action that we can't ignore is the reason we are here today. The book launch, I take it like a baby that was conceived to answer some of the questions raised at the beginning of this project. The why, no action. So this is a baby conceived and born today to give us good results, like Jesus was born for us. So I'm glad we are here partly to share some of the ways to deal with a huge burden, especially in the area of helping people that are struggling with addiction, as has been given in the book and highlighted by the authors. Allow me to give a little history about addiction treatment in Uganda. The director introduced me. I'm now a retired person, retired from public service, but was formerly senior consultant psychiatrist with Butawika Hospital and executive director. I started working in Butawika many years back, I think 1994. And at the time, we clearly had people struggling with the alcohol-related problems and other addictions. Sadly, that time we had very, very little we could offer. Very, very little we could offer. 1998, I started a specialist service for people with addiction problems. It was a very limited service. It was only on outpatient basis. The clinic was running every Tuesday morning. It was not easy because sometimes I would see patients that were struggling with the problem, required admission, but I had nowhere to admit them because there was no work for them. And many of them never, ever wanted to be mixed by the other people because clearly, you know, the problems are very different. The other patients and this one struggling with addiction, quite different, and they never wanted to share the word. So I was into that dilemma. Fortunately, about 2002, management was able to give me the ward, a 24-bed ward, and I was grateful. So we were able to offer some inpatient services, and again, got food in a short time. The time I left, we had expanded it to 120 beds. But now as we talk, I'm still told it's not easy getting in there because the beds are full all the time. Now at that time, I took it up as an initiative to encourage the regional referral hospitals to also start offering specialized services in addiction. And they did to some extent, and some of them still do. The private sector also eventually came in, and like you've heard, they're offering some services. Unfortunately, they're not yet well regulated. They are only in the urban areas, and they seem to be only for the rich. Because if you don't have this in good levels, you can't afford. Because the average now per day is about 100,000 shillings, and you are required to stay about 3 months. So that's a lot of money for ordinary people. Now, expansion of services partly happened because of two factors. That one, we were able to train a number of potential service providers, and the project that was managed by UNODC. UNODC is United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. So they were able to give us some funds, and we did a lot of training for health workers and others to be able to manage this problem. But then later, we also got support from Colombo Plan. Colombo Plan is a US-based initiative. They are based in Sri Lanka, but they work in collaboration with INL in the US, and they do a lot of support in terms of prevention and treatment. Now, I would say in all the trainings conducted, we were mainly looking at the biopsychosocial model. Is what we used and emphasize addiction as unfortunately, as a chronic relapsing brain disease. And we outlined the process of care as including starting with the detoxification. We do relapse prevention. Relapse prevention is where we do a lot of counseling and other things. Then we do social integration and continuing care. So those were the the main components that we taught. Now, the authors rightly raise some of the issues related to this, especially when we talk about a chronic relapsing brain disease. For today, I have no answers about this, but I want to say that these and other issues are here for us to think through and begin to generate ideas on how to address them and improve our approaches to care, working together, really. A lot of these things are not cast in stone. When we say it's a chronic relapsing disease, some people have concerns. Doesn't this discourage even a person that will say, I want to take a step the other direction? But then you are told, but what you have is chronic. So sometimes one people say, maybe let me remain with my chronic problem. I've had people struggling with addiction, and you are telling them, you are damaging your liver. And they are saying that, why do you want me to die with a normal liver anyway? So this thing might be causing issues, but we can sit on table and discuss. There are a lot of things that have been discussed previously. You know, like now, we are discussing this subject, but the literature that came out has discouraged the use of the word alcoholics, which is derogatory. We are now calling them patients with alcohol use disorder. So this is positive change, and I believe we can have the same for some of these issues. I also a little touch about what we call, something we've been using, called the International Treatment Standards. I was lucky to be part of a small team that was put up by UNODC and WHO to develop guidelines for treatments that were supposed to be used internationally. And this was a tool that was developed to help guide countries on policy development, plan, organize, and manage drug treatment services within and beyond the healthcare system. Now, I only summarize, this is quite a big document, but I only summarize with the key principles that we brought up that time to be looked at when anyone was looking at anything to do with treatment for people suffering from addiction. One, and we can compare this with what is coming up. You can use it as a kind of checklist. You can tick off. Not all have to be there, but it's nice to recognize that these are what international community is looking at. That one, these services must be available, must be affordable, accessible, and acceptable. So are people accepting the service you are talking about? Is it available? Is it accessible? Is it affordable? That's something that can be discussed. That the service must respect human rights and the dignity of the patients or the users. So you don't just tie them up because you want them to recover from what they are having. You don't deny them this, you don't keep them naked, half naked. You don't deny them certain things. And incorporated in this is the aspect of ensuring that whatever you are doing, do no harm. Don't harm anybody. That's because they come to you for treatment, don't harm them. And that is really key. The other is that they must be properly coordinated. A bit of science should be there to guide interventions. And we should also always be able to cater for special populations. We should never lump all these people together. There are those that require special attention. Like in this country now, we are looking at a heavy population of refugees, If you are working on the nationals and forget about the refugees, but they are mingling, then you may not be doing a very good job. We have the young people, we have the street children. Those could probably qualify for special population or groups that need to be looked at. Then good clinical governance, that the area, the place where these treatments are being administered should be of some standard, should have some minimal standards. And there is also the issue of integrated care. I think we look at this like even when you have somebody with an addiction problem, they come to you, don't imagine all they have is addiction. If it's alcohol, don't imagine all they have is alcohol. They could be depressed, one could be having in addition diabetes, maybe having no skill and require some skill, maybe having HIV. So you not only treat the alcohol issue and forget about the HIV that they might be having. So the integrated aspect is also important. So the point is, these guidelines do not exclude anyone. I think like it has been included, they only support care both within the healthcare system and outside. So they also recognize the basic levels of care. The first level is the community level. And at community level, really that's entry point. And it's allowed there that all possible players can play a role. A lot of what is offered is identification. There is a lot of these other inputs. Some people are given what we call brief interventions. There are people who come with the alcohol-related problems, might be bad, might be severe, but somebody is able to talk to them 2-3 times, and they will begin to reflect, and eventually they go off. So they don't need to move to higher levels of specialized care. So I want to believe that the partners that we are talking about today, they have an entry point. They have an entry point that can be used. They can be incorporated to play that very critical role at the various levels, but beginning even at the community level, can come up and support the care of these people. I will say just a little bit about the traditional healers that I also talked about in the book. Very well described, and we know that the world over, in Africa especially and Asia, traditional healers are well spread and playing a very key role in complementing formal health care. The good thing is that a number of people believe in them, and I told you for treatment to be successful, it must be acceptable. And here we have a lot of people believing in many of these traditional healers. They are more available, they are accessible, they are affordable. In the healthcare system is talking about health centers being within a radius of 5 kilometers, which we have not yet achieved. But these people are in a radius of 1 kilometer. So I believe they can easily be accessed. And you know, we've had studies in mental health previously where patients coming to mental health, formal mental health services, were asked where they had been before. And 60%, some of you have read these studies, have said they've been already to the traditional healers. 60%. That's quite huge. That means that these fellows are good entry point into the system. So we would be more than happy to have them incorporated because we know they are playing a key role. And I think that's the reason that government is now making an effort to get them on board in a more regulated manner. So in view of the above, I'm not surprised that there are good and successful stories reported by the authors. The Kajomba case, Maurice, Mayanja, and others. By the way, these are really interesting stories and very typical. Many of you might, if you've had any patient in this area, typical story that you go through. You've been through, various challenges here and there, with people, with money, with what. I'll give you one story of one patient of mine who I was managing and had challenges. Then one time, I suffered a theft of a driving mirror from my car. But a week later, he came and confessed, "Doctor, I'm sorry I took your driving mirror." But I was in bad shape and I required some cash. So these stories are there and they're very, very common and very typical. So it's my conviction that we have opportunity for enhancing care through use of existing traditional practices. I certainly can support, when they come on, they can support us reduce the gap as has been highlighted. The international gap internationally is 1 in 5. That out of every 5 patients that require treatment, only 1 is getting treatment globally. But in Africa, it's given at about 1 in 18. But in Uganda, it's worse, we're being told. So we still have quite a big gap. We have a lot of work to do. We only pray for more studies to be done in this area, to continue to inform policy and practice. But I also want to believe that with what we already have at our hands, I think there is a lot that we can do with that. We just need to lay strategies for getting these people on board through whichever way. And I hope as we continue to disseminate the information so far here, there are some people that are here listening and probably ready to take action in this area. So as I conclude, I think this is a very exciting book for me. It goes deep in highlighting the alcohol drinking situation and setting in the country, describes the much suffering that the victims go through in search of care, and gives testimonies of known condemned users of alcohol that have come to life again through help of these traditional practitioners. This is evidence of locally available, accessible, acceptable, and affordable resource that has been found helpful in some people. I found the information in the book exceptionally amazing, and I take the pleasure to invite all of you here to get a copy, read it, and also recommend other friends, relatives, colleagues to do the same. I think I make special appeal to government, especially Minister of Health, to take on this proposed strategy so that it can be incorporated in the national treatment guidelines for addiction management. Once again, allow me to appreciate Professor China, Sarah, and George for the good work. The product is worth the effort and the time spent. Congratulations. May God continue to bless your work. Thank you so much for listening.
But thank you so much, the whole team, for the discussion. I think this is great work. I wish we get many more such investigations. And for all people who are here, members, if there's one area where everybody can be employed, it's research. Anybody who wants to, who is happy with employment, just go to research. There's room for everybody. You can imagine this is a piece of work. I've not read this for quite a long time. You see? Members, what we are used to every now and then are the quantitative aspects of things. But that's more common. That's what newspapers, the media, I don't know which media are here, but the media people are more interested in the quantitative aspects. This morning we were presenting something to Parliament. And I want to tell you, everybody wants me to say figures for this. And you know, no, there's another side of research. And the experts handle this. So it gives us context, it gives us explanation of so many things we are seeing. You see, alcohol is bringing a lot of problems to this country. Lots and lots of problems. So much connected with domestic violence. We are among the top leading domestic violence countries in Africa. Accidents, much of the domestic violence is so much connected with alcohol consumption. Accidents, road traffic accidents. We are among countries with a high per capita road traffic accident countries. And alcohol is partly responsible for many of these border injuries, for many of these accidents we are seeing. You see? Poverty. Our poverty levels are actually rising. Poverty level, several studies connected poverty in our countries to alcohol consumption. Too many problems. You see? So you can see. And one of the places with high poverty levels is actually Karamoja. And Karamoja really has a lot of alcohol consumption and so on and so forth. So lots of things the whole day we can talk about alcohol problems and then we won't finish. Dr. Osama has mentioned 30% of every Ugandan who is moving has a problem with mental health. And mental health has a big component of alcohol consumption. You see? A whole 120-bed hospital wing of the hospital, which is reserved for alcohol and drugs. It's full. I hope they get us another ward. These other mental rehabilitation places, they are struggling. Well, for them they charge, so you have the few people who can manage, can go there, but even then you can see that the numbers, some places they can't go, they cannot manage the numbers. So you see, these are the problems we are having. So I wish we have very many more researchers who can actually get into this, get to make us understand more about what exactly is happening and how we can actually solve these problems. Currently, the country is going through the bid. The bid is about developing laws that can actually manage, that can guide implementation of the policy which the country has approved. It was the president signed for this policy some years ago. So in developing the bid has to be debated. Every now and then there's a debate. Even today we had 2 sessions. You see, we had committees on health and also committee on trade. We had a meeting in the morning at 7:30, we had another meeting at 11, another bigger meeting of the MPs. And again, it's about debate, because it's about you're going to reduce the jobs versus health. The industry people are saying 4 million people are going to lose jobs because of strict alcohol laws. And we are saying, no, you are lying. Because studies are showing that the moment you increase the taxes, the moment you reduce alcohol consumption, the country gets more taxes, and to reduce the number of people who are actually drinking. Those who want to go and take alcohol, they're going to get scared because it's a lot. And also our children will not take alcohol because it's very, very expensive. You have these guys who are very, very rich, who can afford to pay so much money to take theirs. Those ones are going to actually keep paying for that alcohol. But for those who are vulnerable, the number of those who are going to be taking alcohol is going to reduce seriously. I think all of you may be much, much younger than me. I want to tell you that I was I remember during Idi Amin Dada. Idi Amin Dada was very bad. He had killed very many people and whatever, but there are some percentage Idi Amin Dada did, and up to now it's challenging people. It's a big challenge. Because I remember in my village, deep in Kabale, you didn't have, I remember police coming to arrest people who had a beer or 2 beers in the shop. Did you know that during Idi Amin Dada, Uganda exported 4 million bags of coffee? Surprisingly, that record was broken recently. I think like the last 10 or 15 years. You can imagine. So, restricting alcohol consumption most likely is going to increase production. In my village, I know very many people cannot produce anything because of alcohol. You see? I even know a woman whom I found on the roadside at 3 a.m. because she was very drunk. A woman at Paso. 3 a.m. I was coming from Kampala and I saw her on the road. You see? So, many people would increase production. And you also know that in some studies show that 80% of our post-secondary school graduates are unemployed. In case you don't know. Some study, I can't even get the site. And do you know one of the reasons? A number of them are not employable. And there's some alcohol and drug issue in that aspect. So what did we do? Let's support the bill as much as possible. Now, back to the book of the investigators. This book, I found it very, very interesting to read. It's very nice to read ethnographic work because these are stories and stories which really raises a number of issues, stories which are very, very interesting because you can imagine what people are going through. You see? You read this book and you get the impression that, looks like every method of treatment should be respected. Didn't you read this? Didn't you feel this? You have the powerful Dr. Basangwa, so many qualifications, medical qualifications and whatever, and long experience of managing all our mental health in the whole country. But you find people go to America, they are treated on 90 days or 60 days or whatever, and they relapse. You wonder what exactly has happened. This person was being treated by experts, the top experts who are in the country. But there's really some relapse rate. The last time I checked, relapse was in some places, some of these centers. I don't know whether for Costa Rica, but I don't remember, but I can show you in some places, relapse is as high as 30%, 40%, even 50%. So you take 10 people there, 5 now, they relapse, again they get. So something is wrong. There is something which is not, we need a lot of research to see how we can improve our services, medical services. You hear very many stories of people who have gone, I think maybe the next study, Professor China and the team may want to find out, to look out for, to investigate about relapse. You see? Relapse, it's a big issue. So now, you have somebody who, we are complaining of too many churches. I think you heard this. Too many churches, too much noise and whatever. The church is set up in front of you, you go to ring the LOC and you say, you know what? Come and get rid of this church. But if this church is put in there, across, and does not make noise, too much noise at night, and then this church, your son or your daughter or your relative who has been studying you at home, goes there and is, maybe as he gets out, he's welcomed and taken to that church, and he gets better. That is it. I think that's what you're looking for. You see? Let them do it. Let more churches come up if they can do something like that. I always tell people that in my village, in our constituency, in Kawaii, in Dogo West. I think we recently got the first mosque. And I always tell people that if I had land, maybe I would get some place where you could have another mosque, maybe, because a mosque will get people off alcohol. They may bring other things, but at least for alcohol, you'll be saved. You see? So the thing is, we have so much alcohol and addiction problems in this country. You don't want what it means to pay school fees for your brother or your sister who was educated but then went to alcohol. You don't know how much it fees. It's bad. So if a church can be set across and then they are welcoming this patient of viewers, and the patient of viewers gets happy and can keep going to church and is recovers, well and good. So we are seeing from the book, we are seeing that we're seeing cases of recovery. See, Daniela was so much into alcohol, but she was welcomed by the church, and then she recovered. Although that raises another question, which will be of interest to Dr. Wasawa and colleagues, maybe carrying out a thorough study to check the recovery status. Is it complete recovery? To really get scientific evidence to see that actually what they said is recovered, they actually recovered. You see? So we need, that's now another kind of study which would probably be carried out. Then you all see that we had, and then it teaches us that probably there are certain things which we need to know about some of the way some people get better. You see? You have a person like Kajumba, and this person wanted to, I think, started in a seminary. Seminary is where they train Catholic priests. I think there are seminaries also I think Itamina had a seminary. Yeah, the training, it does not necessarily be for Catholic priests, but also the Anglican Church has a seminary. I think other places also have seminaries. So this man wanted to be a Catholic priest, Kajumba, and then he failed. Performance was not good. So it's not clear whether the school said, please get out, or whether the parents said, you know what, you have done badly, please get out. But the man got out, and this young man got out, and then started alcohol consumption. It teaches us a number of things. What do we do every other day that can actually trigger this alcoholism? Could it teach us that actually when someone falls, when something happens at home or whatever, maybe don't make those harsh, bad comments, don't classify a person, maybe a simple way, maybe there could be a better way to treat it, and you avoid that complication. And we've talked about the church, having several churches. We have the Abasanism. We have a lot of things we say about the Abasanism. And Dr. Osawa said 60% of people have been coming here for this. They say, no, 60% of Ugandans say they consult the traditional healers. So we seem to be, during the day, we seem to ignore these traditional healers. We seem to say, those people are bad, they are witch doctors, they are all sorts of things. But the evidence is showing that traditional religion is organized. I mean, it is fully accepted. It's official in the country called Benin or South Africa. You see? And yeah, so maybe these are some of the things we need to investigate. Has it helped them in Benin? You see? And we need to investigate all this. And then we've been told about the history of this alcohol in the country. What does it really tell us? Alcohol has been with us for ages, but actually we also had traditional alcohol. Maybe Professor China and team, the waraji. I don't seem to have read the waraji and the history. You know, they were saying actually waraji is war gin. And yeah, so there's that war gin, yes, but probably we could see, would we have made something like a gin without getting an example from the waraji? Maybe not. But alcohol has been there for some time, and there are wars between the alcohol manufacturers and whatever, and also the colonial government. I'm also really wondering whether there's anything else we can do about these names we call our people who are living with addictions. The thing about an addict, the thing about, this saying that you are an alcoholic, it also bothers me so much. Because I've seen people recover. In Parliament, one MP, late MP, told us, and I got her name, I know the constituency she represents, she told us she was drinking like hell. And she started drinking from when she was a young child. There was no intervention, but she woke up one day and said, you know what, tell me all this. I'm tired of this kind of life. That was an addict. So why do we say that you're an alcoholic? You cannot, you are permanent alcoholic. Really, is this anything else? Isn't this the reason why members who go to Alcoholics Anonymous, they have to go quietly, they don't tell anybody, you don't want anybody to know? So I think there has to be some way of treating this. And you had also these modes of rehabilitation. You have the Minnesota model, you have what Dr. Sanga told us, and I think we need to really see, why don't we have a Ugandan model? Why do we keep following up this model? There's a such gentleman in Kenya, some white gentleman in Kenya who has also a unique kind of model. So why do we really have to, why don't we design our own homegrown model and check its effectiveness? You see? I hope you people, especially young people, I hope we are reading this and maybe you may see whether we can do something. And we've talked about the Abasanis, they also herbalists. You remember, in one character, the Mayanja character in the book. This Mayanja, the Mayanja is not real name, it's just a pseudonym. The Mayanja was given a herbal treatment which made him vomit. And the guy was free from alcohol. You go to Falco. The moment you mentioned alcohol, it was like something you will vomit. That was her. It's not a Musamism. So you can imagine what content, what was the content of that herb? You see? Unfortunately, our herbalists and our Samize cannot really give you the real details of the regimen. You know this very well. But I hope you understand where they are coming from. There have been many cases where the so-called educated people come, they disorganize them. You go and test for the content, then you are going on TV saying that you know what you have found, and we didn't have any iota of medicine or whatever. But when you know actually there are some people are treated, so you demoralize them completely. And that will be the end of that traditional, from research in traditional medicine. I think this book, one of the key things that's coming out of this book is really, let's do research. Let's find out what's not working, irrespective of modes of treatment. You see? And then with time, we should be able to help ourselves. You have this for me, you see, somehow it's helping some people, and others not helping them. So what is for me the smoking? So there must be something which people can really pick and helps them. The issue of drinking in this country is actually not, the problem is not with certain regions only. I hope you have understood, you get this. I know a place which sold the highest amount of money, which sold the highest amount of beer on each day, compared to all other times in the past 6 months. I can't confirm that only those who are celebrating Eid who took the alcohol, but there's something to investigate there. You see? So these are some of the things. And then, did you know that Islamic Republic of Iran, I have evidence here, Islamic Republic of Iran has alcoholic rehabilitation centers. It has built. Actually, they launched the first center on 1st September in 2014. Islamic Republic of Iran. And now there are several centers, different parts of the country. This is Islamic. It's not Uganda. It's not. This is Islamic. Islamic country. Religion is part of their state. It's part of their system. So you can see that's how really complicated alcohol consumption is. And we needed to see what we can do, join to the world, see what we can do to solve the problem. Ladies and gentlemen, this work is very, very good. And it has so many enriching stories. Many things we can learn from this. You see? And I wish everybody reads this. And did you know that actually I was expecting a full house today? And it's the same reason why people are not putting funds into alcohol research. Even I told the parliamentarians, you ignored it, but actually almost everybody's affected. It's one of the things we are not developing. Do you think Uganda's now Irish potatoes? We are eating Irish potatoes from Kenya. I think to me this is strange because I've grown up. The all time I've been in Kampala, we've always taken the Irish potatoes from Kampala. So something went wrong. And alcohol consumption in the Kigezi region is really quite high and getting worse. Could this be part of the problem? So people have not come, people are not seeing this, may just be ignoring just a bomb which is about to explode. So I think it's me and you to really appreciate this, appreciate the great work which the China and the team have made to really spread the word and see what we can do to really change our situation. Otherwise, we are sinking bonds. Something has to be done to make ourselves better, to make ourselves more productive, to make ourselves more wealthy, to get ourselves more knowledgeable, and we really move ahead as a country. So thank you so much for coming, and thanks so much researchers, and thanks so much my colleague, Dr. Osambo. Have a nice evening.
We're extremely grateful, and I think this book is making us, when I moved out, somebody was already having so many questions, but it was going away. And it raises many questions but also very good solutions. People in front here, and they have raised very important issues. So please, feel free to say something. Somebody is already putting up his hand, even already.
George, Sarah, Dr. Basangwa, and Professor Nas. I'm Dr. Low from Ulu University. Actually, I just want to make a quick comment.
Appreciation to our investigators and our discussants. My name is Andisha Sam. I work with the Ghana Councillors Association as a board member in charge of finance. I came here to represent the president. I'm a researcher at the same time, and I have gone an extra mile to interact with our Samize. One of them, how we became friends, is that he's doing his PhD, he's a herbalist from Makerere University, Dr. Segat. Yes, he has allowed me to mention his name because he's a scholar. We are together. He took me to the Busamize for purpose of research. And I asked him, what does Busamize mean? Busamize is a Luganda word meaning Okusa Emize. Ene Luganda here can understand what I mean. Okusa chi? Basa Emize Mukunusu. Babrachi? Omuse Ogumwenge. Omuse Ogubi. Ogumuse. Bagiza Babrachi. Gubera Munchu. It's a long story if you are to exactly this book. Your religion is good, but it's helping you, not the patient. We need to deal with the issues of the patient. What works for this patient is the way to go. If it is to Musamize, take him to work with the Musamize to do what? Okusa Emize. Thank you very much.
I'm a recovered addict, though I don't know how we rephrase that. I'm 8 years sober, and actually I thank you, Mr. Henry, for inviting me. I reached out to him. I was at the alcohol drug unit in Botalika when Mr. Basangwa, I'm sure, was still the director there, and the caretaking of Sister Alice Kamekwenuzi. Yeah, so I even usually go there to speak sometimes. Now, from the perspective of the addict, I've also helped, I think, above 100 addicts who have totally recovered. Now, my approach, aside of the Basamize, for me, I actually feared because of the background, and my family couldn't allow. So, later after I recovered, I decided to formulate another formula using my own experiences. I began by helping my own cousin brother, and actually it was successful. So I came to look at, for example, I've assessed all these methods and why they are successful, and this is another angle to it. All we need to do to help an addict recover is build faith. So actually faith is the medicine. But again, to build faith, the first angle is create love. So these are the two things that are lacking. And of course, when we are speaking about addiction, it's not only alcohol and drugs, it's because we are focusing on this. Every person struggling with a habit or a challenge, these are the two approaches. So you first have to buy love with them, but then faith. For example, if I tell you, this phone, if you buy it, it will heal you. So all I need to do is build your faith in the phone. So if you go with the phone, actually it works. So what we see here, the spiritual aspect, let's say the godly thing, the point of faith is God. Then there were some could give you probably a herb or a chicken, but actually that thing has no power. The power is in your attitude towards that thing. So how you feel about it creates the faith or the fear. So what I do, I usually introduce faith, but again, not because I also believe in the Bible. It says, without knowledge my people perish. So I also teach. So I formed almost like a curriculum. Some of these people, you may see them even at about 40 years, but they don't know the simple basics of life, like timekeeping. Then someone is chased from work, and then you say it's a character issue, but the problem is timekeeping. Then probably most of these addicts I see, they all come from broken families. You have to assess the angle from which this person's problem came about. So the more you address this issue and you say to them, then point them to faith, I've seen total 100% recovery. Thank you very much.
I teach at the Barra University of Science and Technology. China, thank you so much for the invitation. We met because of a student who was working in Barra, and thank you so much for inviting us. My question or concern as a researcher is much to do with how much we are able to really utilize our science. Because a lot of research is being done, and actually I don't think we no longer lack contextualized research. And the government has improved its attitude towards funding research, although there is a bias towards sciences in quotes, the physical, biological sciences without supporting social sciences, when we are actually in the era of integration, interdisciplinary research and sciences. So, but my issue here is, it's so discouraging to have such a beautiful piece of evidence and it only ends here at a launch. We have had realization, to funding, to intervention, to building evidence, to bringing out here to see how it works. And then we don't have a pathway to utilizing science. So for me, actually, that's my big concern. And it drains. And when you're a serious researcher, your question is, how much more am I going to do? And what could it mean? If you look into our strategies for our research, plans for translation of research and its utilization, they never work. And I know researchers have a responsibility to simplify knowledge, ensure that it is understood by non-academic audiences. You can only do that. But if we don't have an institutionalized systemic process, a system well built to ensure that science and resources and its utilization and its monitoring and its evaluation, and even looking into its bring on new people and again, it really wastes a lot of resources. Because if we look into how much science was built here and how it keeps on our shelves, all of us have the responsibility. So the government has increased salaries I had a lot of arguments at our university council, and I said, you are fighting political wars, but when we receive salaries, you don't make us responsible to ensure that we really translate this knowledge and have this pathway. What kind of accountability do we have? So really, that's one of the things that comes into my mind when I come here, and I know that it is possible to really translate science into practice. And it is really simple. It's just a matter of building the culture, having institutions and systems to ensure that these universities, Gulu, Makerere, Sitema, are all mushrooming around, and there's a lot of investment. But what are we doing about it? It's a big question that we must answer, and we all have that responsibility. But I congratulate the team. I like the methodology, and really, I'm a qualitative researcher, I'm a sociologist, so you see, I see life, like one of us has said, the life in the book. Yeah, we cannot only look at the numbers and the experiments, but these are social experiments that we cannot take for granted. So I was really all over enjoying the whole process, and I want to congratulate the team. Thank you so much.
Thank the authors of higher powers. I recognize the presence of the directors, the professors in this place, fellow countrymen. My name is Ndagano Joseph. I'm a minister at Mutundo Christian Fellowship. It's a deliverance church.
And I thank God that this book recognized on the spiritual side, because I'm a former addict, alcoholic, addict, everything, whatever you call it. I've been sober for more than 10 years. To answer part of Professor Naz's question to China, to Professor China, whether these people, the people who get fined, they follow up. I'm one of the testimony. I'm evidence of the people who get fined from church, and I've also helped many people to be delivered. So I had a fellow brother talk about how to get delivered. I want to help some of you, to help others, maybe family members, because this issue, the book is nice, but this issue is in every home. We have brothers, sisters who are getting wasted, who are dying of alcohol, of addictions, drugs. And the way I've helped other people out, because I also work with street children. I'm the founder of Makerere Foundation. I work with street children. The way we can help people is to first have the knowledge on what we are dealing with. Because this is spiritual. We are dealing with supernatural powers. This thing is demonic. And when someone is an addict, number one thing we do is to love that person. Because when you start loving such a person, this person will reveal to you, you'll know more and more and more. Number two, when you love these people, as in they want, like the director said, the director said, one of the guys stole his side mirror from the car. And what I know, the director didn't neglect or imprison this guy. He continued loving. That's what I guess he did. Because these people are part of us. If you abandon, neglect, and this is the only way Kajumba could get deliverance, get saved, and start listening to the pastors who taught him on how to be fine.
I can't give any reason why I'm like that, because they will say that people coming from poor families are the ones who are supposed to be drinking. They didn't come from a poor family. Then the ones coming from these families, like maybe they say they have a lot of money, that's why they bring them from the poor families, because you don't have money. Reasons cannot be explained. I've tried everything possible under the sun to be sober for very many years, since for the last like 14, 15 years. I've been to ADU 2 times, I've been to many rehabs. I've tried herbal medicine. They got me herbal medicine when I was supposed to take my next dose. They found me so drunk. This time I was taken to prison because I was from rehab. I drank. Then they tried herbal medicine. I vomited almost to the point of dying. Then I was like, let me go and see if the thing really works. So I drank to see whether I could not drink again. Then I drank again. They came so late. This time I ended up in a prison, not just the police. They have told me, I like the title of the book, Higher Powers. I think I've seen that the solution is through a higher power. We drink because there's something lacking in us. There's always something lacking in us. We are always trying to fill a certain hole in our space. Like there's no amount of alcohol or drugs can fill this thing. I tried to run away from Uganda after trying to convince people left and right, and I went to a certain Arab country, thinking that side at least there's no alcohol. In Uganda there's too much alcohol. I'll be safe here, that's it. And I was safe for some time, because when in Uganda I would be sober in rehab because there's no alcohol in the rehab. I would be sober in prison because there's no alcohol in prison. By the moment I come out,
I would go back to the same thing. So even when I was in the Arab countries, after some time, problems came in, they started terminating people, and then space came back. And where there's a will, there's a way. Somehow I found alcohol. It didn't take me long to get my contract terminated because of drinking in Arab countries. And somebody was saying, rehabs are there. I found rehabs there, that were there. The churches are good, but most of the churches, I'm not criticizing any church, but they preach the prosperity gospel. You're going to get a car, you're going to marry, you're going to build a house, you're going to get this. You will stop drinking, but they are not teaching people how to pray. I happened to find a church, somebody has mentioned here, I'm not promoting anybody's church or against anybody's church, but I stayed there when somebody recommended me there. I went there night and day, praying. I didn't even have anything, I was just sleeping on the ground. And they taught us how to pray, looking for God, look for your higher power. Your higher power can come from anywhere. I have friends who have recovered from shames, very many. When I came from the Arabs, I stayed to get some of the little money I had, I didn't first pray. I went there, that money was gone. Try the shrine, try your concoctions, try the rehab, try the church, try everything, do whatever you're doing. You never know where you're going to find your breakthrough. And what has happened to me is that ever since I went to this church and I was praying, this time I don't give up now praying for money and children and everything because I was thinking one of these was like I used to give my relatives, and these are not even my people, these are not my parents, these are my guardians, and I'll put them through hell. I came to Makerere here to study. I was here for some years. And in the last semester, I don't know, that was exciting me that I'm not graduate, I don't know. I just spent the rest of the semester in Katanga, over 10 years ago. And I don't have a degree, when the day started, I decided to go there and I first give my testimony and I look at how I messed up my guardian's money, look at the missing papers. And they told me I'll come back. So the thing is that I thought money was the problem. I'm drinking because I don't have money. Because they never used to give me money all the way from secondary because I started drinking at a young age. So nobody would trust me with money that I won't buy drugs, I won't drink. So finally when I went to the Arabs and I got money, I was like, now I've arrived, I've made it, life is made. But I cannot pull out even 1,000 shillings from my pocket so that this is the money I made from that because I drank it all. But the spiritual approach, the higher power, whatever your higher power is, whatever God it is you're believing in or praise, whatever works for you, works for you. And where I went to the church, I've managed to stay 1 month and 2 weeks sober. And I'm not locked up in a prison. I'm not locked up in a rehab. I'm working in a rehab, but unlike the other rehabs, now I can go out. They can give me some money of my own. It's not much money, little money they give me. I can be with it, and like 10,000 can spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks in my pocket. I'm a free man, I can go anywhere anybody else wants to go when I don't have anybody to monitor me. And the higher power is really good, and whatever higher power can work for you. I don't know whether it is your spirit or whatever it is, because at the end of that it is your faith which is going to heal you. Maybe if I believed that the herbs could heal me, I would have become sober, but I tried to see whether they really work. I was doubting it. So I thank you guys for doing the research you have done and opening the...
One thing we might be able to do with that is rather than say, is it this path or that path or this place, but what are the things that are in common between the things that we see working in all of the spaces? And I think those things are a sense of hope, that really you can get out of this and another life is possible, and that is a real thing to be hoped for. So to kind of push back on the chronicity piece. I think thinking about what are the concrete practices that help to generate relationships of trust. So if you can find a way that there's a place that you go all the time, day after day after day after day, and can slowly build trust, that seems really important. And then finally, I want to make one comment about the importance of noise. There's been a couple of comments that have come to say, oh, the church is so loud, or the shrine is so loud. I wish they could be there, but somehow not so loud at night. And I think there's something about churches being loud at night here that is important. And I also like to sleep, but There's something about having a place where people can go in the middle of the night when they might otherwise be out drinking or they might be up with insomnia, and instead there's a place to be that's filled with people and life and noise and dancing. That might be something to think further about. But thank you for all of the very rich questions. I'll turn the floor over to my other colleagues at this table.
Maybe to add a little thing to my, I don't know if you missed Chigozi or Mrs. But if you missed Chigozi, you're my sister in clan. About deliverance.
She's Mrs.
Mrs. So she's my wife. So yeah, like we said, we spent time with most of the participants. We can't say that they were delivered, and that's why we don't know even what deliverance would be. But we've seen cases like you read in the book, cases people who are doing well in herbalist, in church, in Basabize, and in rehabilitation centers. So like China said, it's up to us to see, to weigh what takes place. I also thank the questions. I welcome Mark. It has been a long time to see you. Thank you for sharing the testimony.
And as I said, one of the key things we have to pick is how research that can actually be developed from here. Is then we can get some funding, and then we do a cooperative study, and we will do a trial. See people going to each of these, the herbalists, people going to Masandize, people going to churches, people going to Dr. Masangwa's mode of treatment, and Butabika. So, and then we see where we find the highest recovery rate. See? And maybe that's one of the things we need to investigate. I've already mentioned that maybe China and the team, and maybe others in this audience, or myself or whatever, we may need to think of another bit to look at to do this kind of study among the qualitative study among those who have recovered, all those who have had challenges in each of these places, and then we see. You see, Mark has given a very rich testimony. I think the commissioner really has to get over correcting Mark, and they see what more they can discuss with other people. So these are the things we need. Can we get more of this information? Because this problem is too much, and we need solutions. So irrespective of whichever means, people are desperate. People are paying lots of money, 70, 80, 100,000 shillings per day. So when you tell them that this works, I think irrespective of whether it is the Muslim prayers, or it is the charismatic, or it is whatever, I think people are ready to go for it. Because people want treatment there and then, and that's what all of us, let's see, what more can we do? What research can we do? What collaborations can we do? And we see whether we can have any impact. There are several scholars here. We have Professor Belki, we have Claire, who's doing Professor Belki is from Belgium. We have Claire, is one of our PhD students studying treatments, and several other people. You heard from Barara, from Puru, Professor Room, and whatever. So what can we do from here? What researches? Let's look at the different topics, and we see how we can actually work together and find a solution. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the comments and some questions, some of which have been addressed. I think my point is about the key issues of what the authors have brought up. I think what they are doing now is stimulating discussion. Let us see what next steps we can take. It can be about practice, can be about further studies, can be about anything. But I think what is important is that let us bring whoever has some idea on table, we discuss, we see what good can be picked, we see what needs to be rejected, but at least be able to move forward together to help the suffering populations.
People are talking about traditional healers. No one has been discussing it that much. The way we talked about, you found Ebamoyana here, who is and I just need to learn about the Baganda gods. I was just listening. Some people called Ebamoyana. I didn't know that it is one of our gods here. But now I understand. So it's been a bit of a big discussion. It's something that probably is going to be so serious in your office now. So she's the Commissioner, Ministry of Health, in charge of mental health. And today also she's our guest of honor. So we put our hands together. And thank you very much. Much as I know it's traffic time, but you made sure you came here and officiate at this book launch. Thank you very much for sparing this time. It's a beautiful discussion. People have wonderful ideas. As Dr. Basangwa said, it's just stimulating the discussion. I have never thought about some things, but now I'm just thinking. I can't even comment because I might comment badly. Let me think about it, some of the things. And at this juncture, Commissioner, I wish to invite you to address us. We are talking about our addressers and finally launched this book, Higher Powers, Alcohol and After, in Uganda's capital city.
I actually invoked them because it was getting very late. But I'm so grateful that I managed to find the discussion happening and to be here to represent my peers. My permanent secretary sends her apologies for not being here physically, but she requests that she listens in. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I think we'll share the book with her and just give her a bit of what is in there, because she's really passionate about substance use control. As I've been introduced, I'm the Acting Assistant Commissioner, Mental Health and Control of Substance Abuse, the Ministry of Health, and that is why she delegated me here. But I'm also here in my own capacity as the person in charge of control of substance use in the country. So I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad to hear this conversation. And by the way, in the morning, 7 o'clock, we had a breakfast meeting where we were discussing about alcohol and tobacco. And then later, around midday, before my prayers, we were discussing about the alcohol control bill. Then just before I came here, we were discussing about depression. The depression of which is caused many times by some of the substances of abuse, or those that are depressed will take on these substances. So somehow my mind is just around here, and the kind of discussion that I was hearing here is totally different from what we're discussing the other side. One, policy issues and the bill, the law, and but now we are at the the people who are being affected. And I wish Mark was there in today's meeting, the morning meeting that we had, because one of the members of parliament was rubbishing the need for the bill, saying that it is something. Yeah, he was drinking, and I stopped drinking. So it is not. You should not over that. I was making it hyper. I was hypering it and making it so important that we should control alcohol. I didn't get an opportunity. She left before I could respond to her. But I know that alcohol use, even not abuse, is a public health concern in this country. We are the leading consumers of alcohol on the continent. This has implications, and one of our biggest trouble is its availability. Alcohol is everywhere, anywhere. You can take it anytime. There are different volumes. It is so cheap. It is sold to whoever has their money, and in different volumes. There's a time I was moving on the streets of my place there in the Masuba. And they had reduced the volumes of the, I think it wasn't beer, it must have been one of, okay, an alcoholic. They were putting it in smaller bottles, in these mineral water bottles, like small volumes for people to be able to afford them. 500 shillings, 1,000. No. I was comparing ourselves to communities where alcohol is not readily available. It is possible that someone can get to 18 years when they have not seen someone who is taking alcohol. So they will not even be bothered when they grow up later in life to know what it is or to even try it out. The majority of the people who have not been exposed at an earlier stage will not be able to purchase alcohol. Or if they did, it will not take a lot of their time. But as Mark rightly said, for him he started when he was still young. And that is where the problem is. Colleagues, we are trying to push for the age of 21. We are saying people should not start taking alcohol before 21 years. The industry itself has done their research and found that if someone has not taken an addictive substance by the age of 21, they are least likely to ever start using those substances. They didn't say they are never going to, but they're least likely. So these are some of the things. We are trying to use their own research to develop our policies. And I know that many people are struggling. I think each and every family here in Uganda has someone who has a substance use problem. And they're all struggling with that person in that family by either wanting to take him to hospital, or they're taking care of his family, or he's stealing their things, or they're really getting him out of prison all the time. You know, these people are there. And it's unfortunate that there are some families who have so many. So I think we need to all start thinking about this. Everyone in Uganda wants it, but they are pulling their legs. They are saying, let us go slowly. You see these people who are making money. We don't want people to stop making money. But we are telling them, how about the lives of the people they are selling this alcohol to? And then they are telling us, we need to draw a balance. You see, we need to draw a balance. I'm glad that I have a team here who I'm sure are convinced that we need to do something about alcohol, and are going to rally behind us at the Ministry of Health to move this. I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't know, Sarah, from here what we're going to do, but I wish the people who are in here can each one of us write something and tell their member of parliament to do something about alcohol. I think we need to come up. We need to come up as individuals. What do we need and what have we provided? As a ministry, we have an alcohol control policy. This policy was discussed already by the cabinet, and it was passed and accepted. It was posted. My biggest worry is that it has not been given even 1 shilling for its implementation. But I know one of the reasons is we do not have an act. That some of the things that are in there require an act so that they can be implemented properly. And the thing is, if I sold to a child less than 21 years, what will you do to me? Minus any law, we cannot do anything. There are things that we have said also, like you should not sell to someone who is already intoxicated. Many times people get from one place into another. If they're just from one place, they'll just ride and get into another place and start off from there until the morning. So we are telling people, we are holding the sellers responsible and telling them that you're not supposed to sell to an already intoxicated person. We are telling people that let's have these Ubers or these private transport systems such that if you find one of your customers is really so intoxicated that they cannot drive themselves home, let us get them a means of transport. I was told, no, that is not possible. But nowadays we have Ubers. We even have Uber borders, not so? Yes. So what is wrong with that? They said it was not possible. It was those of us who do things You cannot bring them here to our life. But anyway, what am I saying? We are not going to let them. We have that policy and it is a starting point. And we are now discussing the bill. So it surely will help us to have something to regulate alcohol. We also have the guidelines. We are developing guidelines for the rehabs. Just like Emmanuel was saying, yes, we've got Serenity Center and all other rehabs around to help guide the provision of services. Our problem also is that there are so many rehabilitations and each one of them is doing whatever they want. They're using whichever, models they have. Everyone does their own thing. So we are saying, no way. Let us try to regulate and have a proper way of handling our patients in Uganda. So at least we've started that process and we've produced our first draft. Then also we have data. We're developing some data, and of course some of what we are seeing in these academic environments, so providing some data for us. But also we have put data for continuous monitoring within our health facilities. Many times people do not walk into a health facility to say that I'm drunk or whatever, that kind of thing. So, I have a problem with alcohol. They never walk there. They are usually brought by another person, and many times in the lower facilities, they are just, I say, because they don't even know what to do with them anyway. So they all end up in Butabika, and luckily we have an alcohol and drug unit within Butabika where people can be managed. But I want to tell you that ward is overwhelming. You will not go in that day and get admitted there. You will be on a waiting list. You will be on a waiting list. You will not walk in and be cared for from there. So there are so many issues that we are still grappling with, but it's just because the numbers are also so big. 9.8% of those that take alcohol actually have an alcohol use problem. And we are saying about, is it 60-something% of people in Uganda take alcohol? They take alcohol, more than 50%. So we are seated in this room and I'm told, just come. Oh yes. So anyway, what am I saying? The numbers are so big and beyond what our health system can actually take in. So of course we need other ways of doing things. Dr. Basanga's model will not work alone, and I'm glad we are thinking of that higher power. Everyone has a higher power somewhere. They will seek for it somewhere. And these are the different places we've talked about, and I agree, totally agree. Some will find it in churches, others in mosques, others in shrines, others in just a word of mouth by their grandmother or grandfather. They will hold their head and say, and somehow that will move with them. I think this book is going to stimulate a lot of discussion, and I hope we are not stopping at this level. Have we got an opportunity to go to radio? Any radio or television program? I hope so.
We have some press here today attending this event. We also did a Luganda language radio program on CBS Radio FM Luganda some years back, but I think there's room for more.
I think we need to do it again and again, so that people can just start to think through it. The first time you listen and say, so I am begging that we do not stop here. Now that we're even talking about higher powers, people in Uganda are so spiritual, they are so religious. But unfortunately, there's a lot of dualism. You see someone going into a shrine and then the following morning they go to church. So, for purposes of healing, if that is going to help you to heal, let it be. Yes, you have to seek the higher power. I don't know which one will be higher for you, but whatever it is, for purposes of healing, we need to seek whatever is available. It is okay. So, with all those many words, I want to thank the editors of this book. I want to thank you for holding in here. It's 6 o'clock, And I want to thank Dr. Basangwa for the work that he has always done. He has done in Butabika and he's continuing to do with this public of Uganda as far as alcohol control is concerned. We really want to thank you for your energy and your expertise. And And I want to thank all the people that from whom you got this information, because minus them would not be here to note this book. So we want to thank all the participants who responded to their research, and for all the people that they managed to observe and see whatever was happening. Yeah, to thank you for the good work. You have added something, the body of knowledge in your life. So without many words, I want to stop here. Launch the book. Higher powers, alcohol, and after in Uganda's capital city.
Honorable, as you said, what has been bustling my mind is, I'm not answering to that, but what I was asking is alcohol bad? If we could also address that, is alcohol bad? Then also, I think we'll also be able to generate other ideas and solutions. Is there something we are not doing to prevent people coming to that level? I think we really need to do a lot of sensitization and awareness, other than just stopping people to asking people to begin drinking at 21. But how do they drink? And what is the quantity? What is required? And there are some studies saying alcohol by itself is not very bad and it has some benefits. So we need to begin and build on that as well. Thank you very much.
And she's not responding based on her faith, but on science.
Yes. Recently, not so long ago, I think sometime last year, where it was revealed that the study that was something like that, the red wine, a little bit of red wine is good for your heart, has been funded by the alcohol industry. What does that tell you? Okay, that is one. Two, the damage of implementing the website. They are telling you that it's not safe anymore. And for others, if they even fail, that is why some people take a tot and they fall to the other side. And others can take a whole crate without having any effect on them. So there's no safe level that can be prescribed and say, you now take a bit of this, like this and this. It will all cause you problems. It will affect your heart, it will affect your blood vessels, it will cause the hypertension that we are talking about, it will cause the impotence, it will cause the diabetes, and all the other NCDs, the non-communicable diseases that we've heard about. So alcohol is a risk factor for all the major non-communicable diseases, and there's no safe way that can be prescribed.
I wish to invite once again the guest of honor to usher us into the next phase, that is merrymaking. Thank you very much.
But there's no alcohol.
Yeah, no alcohol.
Thank you very much.
We are